This is your SAT tutor John. I've been an SAT tutor for a company in New York for over 2 years, and in this video I'll be covering the Section 1 Math of the Digital Practice Test 2 that can be found on the College Board website. With that being said, please make sure to like, subscribe, and comment down below what questions you feel you struggled with or with what you would want any help with. Okay, let's get going with question 1. So, question 1 says the line graph shows the percent of cars for sale at a used car lot on a given day by model year. It says for what model year is the percent of cars for sale the smallest. So this on the y-axis is percent of cars for sale, and clearly in 2014 it would be the lowest, so the answer here would be C, because it would be about, say, 4%. Okay, C is answer 1. Okay, 2 says for a particular machine that produces beads, 29 out of every 100 beads it produces have a defect. A bead produced by the machine will be selected at random. What is probability of selecting a bead that has a defect? Okay, so obviously 29 in every 100, that would be something like 0.29, or just 29 over 100, right? Because 29 out of every 100 translates directly to 29 over 100. Okay, 3 says, in the figure, line M is parallel to line N, and line T intersects both lines. What is the value of X? Okay, so if you know anything about angles, you would know that with angles, if these two lines are parallel, then this angle is also equal to this angle. So if this angle is 33, that means that X would be equal to 180 minus 33, which is equal to 147 degrees. So it would be D. Okay, this is because these two are corresponding angles, and then these two angles on a straight line would mean that the angle on the other side of the parallel line would have to make the sum equal to 180 degrees. So we would pick 147. For 4, it asks what is the y-intercept of the graph shown. So obviously the y-intercept is just where the line would cross the y-axis. In this case, that is 8. So the correct answer would be D, because it crosses the y-axis at 0 and 8. Okay, for 5, it says the total cost FX in dollars to lease a car for 36 months from a particular car dealership is given by FX equals 36x plus 1,000, where X is the monthly payment in dollars. What is the total cost to lease a car when the monthly payment is $400? Okay, so it says that X is the monthly payment in this case. That means that we could set X equal to 400. That means that if X would be equal to 36 times 400, because as it states there, X is the monthly payment, which is $400. 36 times 400 plus 1,000. Okay, and if I put this into my calculator, 36 times 400 plus 1,000 gives me 15,400. So C would be the correct answer. Okay. It says each side of a square has a length of 45. What is the perimeter of the square? So remember, a square is just a shape where all 4 sides are exactly the same. And if one of these sides are 45, that means each other side is also 45. So we would do 45 times 4, and that would give us 180. Okay. For 7, it is our first real kind of calculation. For 7, we would take this X plus 6 that is in the denominator over to the right hand side. So this would become 55 equals X, and then times X plus 6. If we multiply this out, we would get X squared, and then this X times 6 would be plus 6X. This is all equal to 55. Then we can take this 55 over to the right hand side, so 0, and this would become a negative because it is a positive here, and it would become a negative on the other side. So we would have X squared plus 6X minus 55. Okay, so this is just a normal quadratic equation. So we would do it under here. I presume that most of you watching this would know how to do a standard quadratic equation. So let's write it down under here. So let's say x squared plus 6x minus 55 equals 0. So when we can already write it like this, x, and because this is a negative, we would have 1 plus, and we would, on the other side, we would have a minus, because when we would multiply these two numbers with each other, they need to give us negative 55. So the two factors of 55 that we can use are 11 and 5, because 11 times 5 is 55. So we just need to choose which one would we choose as positive and which one would we make negative. So in this case, we need the sum of these two to get us to 6, positive 6. So we would choose the positive 11 and the negative 5, right? Because 11 minus 5 would give us 6, and also 11 times negative 5 is equal to negative 55. We set this equal to 0. And then, of course, it asks us what is the positive solution to the given equation. So either one of these two terms need to be negative. Sorry, not negative, I mean 0. So it could either be x is equal to negative 11, which would make this part 0, or it could either be x is equal to 5, which would make this part 0. So they're asking for the positive solution, and of course the positive one would be 5. So 5 is our answer. Let me just erase this. Okay, that has been the biggest question thus far. Now it says an object travels at a constant speed of 12 centimeters per second. At this speed, what is the time in seconds that it would take for the object to travel 108 centimeters? So if it travels 12 centimeters every second, what is the amount of seconds it would take to travel 108 centimeters in total? So we would just do a simple division. 108 divided by 12, that would give us the amount of seconds. 108 divided by 12 is equal to 9. So A would be our answer over here. Okay, a data question. Number 9. It gives us a data set X and a data set Y. It says that the list give the values in data sets X and Y, which statement correctly compares the mean of that set X and the mean of that set Y. So the mean basically just refers to the average of each set. And as you can see, the first 4 values for X and Y are exactly the same, but Y includes a much larger number, 27, as well. Because of this, the average for Y would be much higher than X, just because of that big outlying value that is larger than all the other values in the set. So you know that the mean of Y is larger than X. Now let's search for our answer. The mean of that set X is greater than the mean of that set Y. That is false. The mean of that set X is less than the mean of that set Y. That would be true. So B would be our answer in this case. Okay, it says a rocket contained 467,000 kilograms of propellant before launch. Exactly 21 seconds after launch, 362,105 kilograms of this propellant remained. On average, approximately how much propellant in kilograms did the rocket burn each second after launch? Okay, so we need to get the difference between 467,000 and 362,105 to get the total amount of propellant used in this 21 seconds. So 467,000 minus 362,105 is equal to 104,895. So this is D, but then it also is the average, so for each second. So we would have to divide that by 21, which gives us 4,995, which is the average used in each second after launch. So A would be the answer here. Okay, so that's our first 10 questions. So as you've heard, I have been a SAT tutor for a company for over 2 years, and I also do my own private tutoring on the side. If you are interested at all in private tutoring and you want to get the best of your upcoming SAT, make sure to press the link below to book a consultation with me. I also have different tutors which I will set available to tutor you. So if you are interested in getting that mark up to get that college admission, just click down below to book a consultation and we will take it from there. Okay, let's get back to the video. So it says, if 4x plus 2 equals 12, what is the value of 16x plus 8? So what we could immediately see here is that 16x plus 8 is exactly 4 times 4x plus 2. Remember, if we do 4 times 4x plus 2, we are left with 4 times 4x is 16x, 4 times 2 is 8, plus 8. So we can see that 4 times this term is exactly 4 times this term on the right hand side. That means that the 12, that in this case this, would be exactly 4 times 12 as well. So 4 times 12 is 48. That would be our answer there. There's also an easier way to, or well, I would call it the harder way. You could just go calculate x, and then you could substitute x into there to also get 48. This is just a quicker way to do it, the way I did it. Okay, so 12 says an object is kicked from a platform. The equation h equals negative 4.90 squared plus 70 plus 9 represents this situation. So that is a negative parabola, where h is the height of the object above the ground in meters, t seconds after it is kicked. So if t is equal to 0, that means that would be 0 seconds after it is kicked. So that is its initial position. So it asks us which number represents the height in meters from which the object was kicked. Okay, so in that case we would need to actually set t equal to 0. Because this would give us the original position, so meaning where it was kicked from. So if we set t equal to 0, 0 there, 0 there, we are just left with 9. That means that the height that it was kicked from was 9. So D would be our answer here. 13 says, the given equation defines the function f. For what value of x does fx reach its minimum? So 13 is just a parabola that would look something like this. So it asks us for what value of x does fx reach its minimum. So there is a formula we use to get this. Of course, most of you guys would use Desmos, but seeing that we are doing this paper without using any Desmos, we can use the equation negative b over 2a. So obviously in this case, a is equal to 4, b is equal to negative 50, and c is equal to 126. So negative b over 2a would be negative b would be negative 50 over 2a, which is 2 times 4. This is equal to 50 over 8, which is equal to, if I put it into the calculator, a more simplified form, is 25 over 4. Okay, so yeah, 25 over 4 is that answer. The next question will take up a bit of space, so I will do some of it up here. Sorry, so this was D. Let me just take out some of this. So 13 is 25 over 4. Okay, let's get to 14. It says, a small business owner budgets $2,200 to purchase candles. The owner must purchase a minimum of 200 candles to maintain the discounted pricing. Okay, so 200 candles must be purchased. If the owner pays $4.90 per candle to purchase small candles and $11.60 per candle to purchase large candles, what is the maximum number of large candles the owner can purchase to stay within the budget and maintain the discounted pricing? Okay, so first of all, to maintain the discounted pricing, you must buy a minimum of 200 candles. So we will call the small candles S, and we will call the large candles L. So this would have to be larger or equal to 200, because the total amount of candles needs to be equal to at least 200. And then also he only budgets $2,200, meaning that if he pays $4.9 per candle to purchase small candle, so we could say 4.90 times every small candle plus 11.6, sorry, that is just a bit not neat, plus 11.60 L for every large candle, it would have to be smaller or equal than 2,200. Right, so now we have got two equations here which we need to use to try and set into one another to get this equation to work. Okay, so the first thing we can notice here is that S plus L is larger or equal to 200, so we can kind of write that in terms of one or the other, right? So we could turn this thing around and we could say that then L is, if we just keep that on the left hand side, is larger than 200 minus S, right? So we know that L is larger than 200 minus S, but that would not be the ideal one to use. Okay, no. The one to get there as quick as possible is we would say that S is larger or equal than to 200 minus L. Okay, and now we can actually substitute this into the S and work out the equation accordingly. Okay, so I will continue with it up here. So we could use 4.90 times then 200 minus L, then plus 11.60 L would have to be smaller than 2,200. Right, so let me try and substitute, or multiply this out. So we would get 980 minus 4.90 L plus 11.60 L is smaller than 2,200. Okay, and if we keep the L's on the left hand side, negative 4.90 plus 11.60 is equal to 6.7 L. And if we then take this 980 to the right hand side, we would be left with 1,220. Right, so then if we just multiply that or divide it through, we would be left with 1,220 divided by 6.70, which is equal to 182.089. So we know that they can obviously only buy a whole number of large candles. It can't be a half candle or whatnot. And it says that the large candles is smaller or equal than 182.089. Because of this, it asks what is the maximum number of large candles the owner can purchase to stay within the budget and maintain the discounted pricing. So it would be have to be smaller than 182.089. So it would just be 182. Okay, it's very essential to try and understand this question, because there is another question coming up like this in a few questions time. So yes, it is definitely one of the more difficult questions. Yeah, it is definitely one of the more difficult questions that can be asked in the SAT. So you definitely have to know how to do it. Yes, don't be too worried if you don't understand it right away. Go through it a few more times to try and understand it. Just the initial equations are very important. If you can get those and then just set the S and L in terms of each other, it would definitely help a lot in solving the equation ultimately. Okay, let's go to 15. So 15 says, in the linear equation f of 0 equals 8 and f of 1 equals 12. So if there's a 0 or a 1 in the brackets of the f like this, that basically just represents what the x value is that we are using. So when x is equal to 0, y equals 8, and when x is equal to 1, y is equal to 12. So let's check. X is equal to 0, in this case y is equal to 8, so A does work, and x is equal to 1, y is equal to 12, so 12 times 1 plus 8 is 20, so definitely not A. Let's try it for B. If x is equal to 0, y is equal to 8. No, in this case it would be 0. C, let's set x equals 0. Equals 4 times 0 plus 12, which is just 12, not 8, so it's not C. So, I mean, it has to obviously be D, but let's also try it. If x is equal to 0, then 4 times 0 plus 8 equals 8, so it does satisfy the first equation. And then f of 1 equals 12, so let's say it equals 1. 4 times 1 equals 4 plus 8 equals 12, so it satisfies the second one as well, so D would be correct. Okay. Now it asks us about the function f of w equals 6w squared, gives the area of a rectangle in square feet if its width is w feet and its length is 6 times its width. Okay, which of the following is the best interpretation of f of 14 equals 1176? So obviously this would mean if 14 is in here and 14 is w, 14 is the width. So let's see where it says that if the width of the rectangle is 14. So this one says that, this one says that. Okay, so C is obviously wrong because the width of the rectangle is 14, and D is obviously wrong because the width of the rectangle is 14. And it equals 1176. So what it equals, it gives the area of the rectangle. So it also needs to state that the area is 1176. So then the area of the rectangle is 1176. Okay, so A would be correct here. Because if you go look at what W means and what the result of the equation means, A states both of those. B says that the length is 1176. That's false because the area is 1176. Remember, so A would be the answer in this case. Okay, now for 17. The circle shown as center O, circumference 144 pi, and diameters PR and QS. The length of arc PS is twice the length of arc PQ. Okay, right, so first of all, as you can see, this arc would be equal to this arc, and this arc would be equal to this arc. Okay, and it says that the total circumference is 144 pi, and it also says that the length of this arc PS is 2 times the length of arc PQ. So if we call this 2x, we know this is x, so then we would also know that this is also x, and this is also 2x. And now it asks what is the length of arc QR. Okay, so let's first of all, the entire circumference is 144 pi. So it would be 2x plus x plus 2x plus x is equal to 144. It's unnecessary to keep the pi there for now. It's not, I'm just using the values before it. We don't need to use the pi. That would be 6x equals 144. And that would make x equal to 144 divided by 6 equal to 24. Okay, so if x is equal to 24, that means they are asking us for the length of arc QR, which is this one. So that is equal to 2x, right? So 2 times 24 is equal to 48. So the answer would be 48 pi. Okay, let's keep it going. So for 18, this is almost an exactly similar question to 14 over here. So let's go to 18. A company that provides whale watching tours takes groups of 21 people at a time. The company's revenue is $80 per adult and $60 per child. If the company revenue for one group consisting of adults and children was $1,440, how many people in the group were children? Right. So revenue for one group consisting was 1,440. So let's say it's 80 times an adult, right? So 80A plus 60 per child, so 60C, let's call it, equals 1,440. Right, that's what they're telling us, that for one group the entire revenue was 1,440, and for each child it's $60, for each adult it's $80. And yes, also what they also tell us is that the adults plus the children, A plus C, is actually equal to 21, right? Because they take groups of 21 people at a time. So similar to the previous question that I told you, we now just need to set A and C in terms of each other. So we want the children, so we would set it in terms of adults, so we can set that in so it's all in terms of C. So then, I mean, A would be equal to 21 minus C, if we take the C to the right hand side. And now we can just set that in. So that would be 80 then times 21 minus C plus 60C equals 1440. Okay, I'll continue with this question here on the left hand side. So 80 times 21 is equal to 1,680, and then minus 80C if we multiply out those brackets in there, and then it would be plus 60C equals 1440. Okay, so if we keep the C's on the left hand side, we'd be left with negative 20C. And if we take the 1,680 over to the right hand side, we have 1440 minus 1,680, which is equal to negative 240. So C would obviously in this case just be equal to 12, because negative 20 times 12 is negative 240. Right, so C would be our answer. So again, make sure you have a good grasp of how to approach this question now. Set out your two types of equations, and practice it a lot. Give yourself different scenarios and make sure that you work through it properly. Okay, so it says in 19, the function h is defined by hx equals 4x plus 28. The graph of y equals hx in the xy plane as an x-intercept at a and 0, and a y-intercept at 0 and b, where a and b are constants. What is the value of a plus b? Okay, so first of all, I mean, this is just about getting the y-intercept and the x-intercept. So let's write our equation. Y equals 4x plus 28. So the way we get a y-intercept is by setting x equal to 0. And the way we get an x-intercept is by setting y equal to 0. So the first thing we'll do here is we'll try and get the y-intercept. So we'll set x equals to 0. We do y equals 4 times 0 plus 28. And that would just give us 28, right? And then for the x-intercept, we would do 0 equals 4x plus 28. We would be left with negative 28 equals 4x. And that would just give us x equals negative 7, right? Because 4 times negative 7 is negative 28. So now they're asking us, so our x-intercept is negative 7 and our y-intercept is 28. Now they're asking us what is the value of these two added together. So 28 plus minus 7 would be 28 minus 7, which would give us 21. Okay, that is 19. Now for 20, it says one of the factors of 2x to the power 3 plus 42x to the power 2 plus 208x is x plus b, where b is a positive constant. What is the smallest possible value of b? Okay, so now we would just need to factorize this equation to get all our factors, right? So we could take out x. We could actually take out 2x, right? So this would be 2x we could take out. Just make that nice. Okay, 2x. We would be left with, on this one, we would be left with x squared. With the second one, we would be left with 21x. And with the last one, we would be left with just 104, right? Because 2x times 104 is 208x. Okay, But as you can see, this over here in the brackets is actually a perfect quadratic equation. So, not perfect, but it is a quadratic equation, and we could just factorize that as well. So if we keep this 2x on this side, and let's write plus, so we can use two pluses, right, because it's only pluses everywhere. So let's think about what gives us 104. I think 13 times 8, and then 13 plus 8 is also 21. So we would use 13 and 8, of course. 13 and 8, and then for 13, so 13 times 8 gives us 104, but 13 plus 8 also gives us 21, so it satisfies our conditions. And now it asks what is the smallest possible value of b, and they told us that the factor is x plus b, right? So the smallest possible value would be the one with the 8. 13 is the largest possible one. So the smallest possible value of b would be 8. Okay, good. Okay, 21. Okay, so for 21, we would have to be familiar with the topic of the discriminant. So a discriminant is basically just the equation b squared minus 4ac. And there's different conditions to a discriminant, and I would encourage you to try and remember this or memorize this. So if the discriminant is equal to 0, that means that the system only has one solution. If it is smaller than 0, it means that the system has no solutions, so 0 solutions. And if it is larger than 0, that means that the system has 2 solutions, right? So that is an important thing to remember. When I'm talking about solutions, I mean when we have a graph like this, it has 0 solutions if it's like this, because it never crosses the x-axis. It has one solution if it perfectly just touches it once, that's one solution, and if it crosses it twice, that's 2 solutions, right? So that is what the discriminant tries to tell us, and we will be able to use it in this question. Okay, so it says, in the given system of equations, a is a positive constant. That is irrelevant for now. The system has exactly one distinct real solution, right? So that would mean that b squared minus 4ac would be equal to 0, because as I just showed, one solution would mean the discriminant is equal to 0. So let's keep on going with this. Now they ask us what is the value of a. So let's just set y equal into the second equation. Negative 1.5 equals x squared plus 8x plus a. We can bring this over to the right hand side. 0, and then x squared plus 8x, and then plus a plus 1.5. We will use this last part of the equation as c, because it doesn't have any x attached to it, so it's just a normal integer or decimal, whatever. So now we can use our b squared minus 4ac, so b is equal to 8, so it would be 8 squared minus 4 times a is 1, and then c is a plus 1.5, so a plus 1.5, and this would have to be equal to 0 because of our condition that we said. So if we multiply this out, we're left with 64 minus 4a minus 6, right? Because negative 4 times 1.5 is negative 6, is equal to 0. And this would mean we are left with 58 is equal to 4a. And if you do then 58 divided by 4, 58 divided by 4 is 29 over 2. So a would be equal to 29 over 2. 29 over 2 would be the answer there. Okay, so I know this seems quite difficult, but if you understand the topic of the discriminant and you just set that y into the second equation, it would make sense. And then from there on, we just did it as a normal equation to solve for a. Okay, so now 22. It says the function f is given. Which table of values represents y equals fx minus 3? Okay, so when it says which table of values represents y equals fx minus 3, that basically just means that this new y is just basically whatever answer we got here, and then we just deduct 3 from that. So this table would have to satisfy all the values that satisfy this new y, where each original y value just has 3 subtracted from it. Okay, so for example, let's try negative 6, right? If we do negative 6, if we put negative 6 in here, this would make this first one 0, right? So then this would just be 0. And then the new y would be 0 minus 3, which is minus 3. So let's see, minus 6 minus 9. So obviously this one is wrong. It doesn't show negative 3 over there. Negative 6, this one shows the negative 3, so B is possible. Same with C, also shows negative 3, that is possible. D does not show, it shows 3, so D would be incorrect. Okay, now if we put in negative 5, if we put in negative 5, then it would also be equal to 0. So then 0 minus 3 would again give us negative 3. So B again has it as negative 3, which is correct. C does not have that, so C, we would eliminate C and we would be left with B. So the only option here would be B, and B is correct in this case. Okay, 23 looks like quite an easy one. It says for the function q, the value of qx decreases by 45% for every increase in the value of x by 1. So that means that every time x increases by another one, the value would just decrease by 45, 45, 45. Now it says if q0 equals 14, which equation defines q? Right, so q0 equals 14. So let's set 0 into each one. So anything to the power of 0 is equal to 1. So 14 to the power of 0 is 1, so that would give us 0.55. Not correct. Same with this one, 1.45 times 1 is just 1.45. Not correct. C would actually be correct because 14 times 1 would be 14. And D would also be possible. So it's either C or D. But then it tells us that it decreases by 45 for every increase in the value by 1. So just look at D. Every time this would increase by 1, the value would actually become larger and not decrease. But with C, every time the exponent gets lifted by 1, the ultimate answer would decrease and decrease and decrease because of the 0.55, which is the base value of the exponent. So C would be the right answer. Okay, we are on the second last page. From here on out, the questions do sometimes get quite tough, but I will try and approach them as slowly as possible. So let's see. The graph of y equals fx plus 14 is shown. Which equation defines function f? Okay, so as you can see, this line is going down. That means that the slope is negative. In each case, they actually do show the slope as negative. So that is fine. Oh, okay. Right, sorry, I almost read there for some time. So this graph is actually fx plus 14. So it's some original graph. So if this graph is a result of translating another graph up by 14 units, that means that the original graph would actually have had to be like much lower, right? It would have to be somewhere there. Sorry for that bad drawing, but it would have to be somewhere to the lower side. So it says which equation defines the function of f. So if this is just fx with a 14 added, then this new graph is y equals negative something. Well, it seems negative 1 over 4, right? Negative 1 over 4x plus 2 because of this 2y intercept over there. That means that the original one would just be 14 less than that, seeing that 14 has already been added to the previous equation. So 2 minus 14 is negative 12. So it makes sense that it would be somewhere around here, negative 12. So A would be the correct answer in that case. Yeah, you just have to imagine that what the original equation was, that it was 14 lower, and that would make some logical sense. Okay, we are on 25 now. So it says the side lengths of right triangle RST are given. Triangle RST is similar to triangle UVW, where S corresponds to V and T corresponds to W. So if a triangle is similar, that just means that the angles are the same, exactly the same. So let's give us RST. Okay, let's draw RST. So let's say this is right triangle RST. So obviously TR being the longest, that would have to be the hypotenuse. And this would be, yeah, so ST is equal to 48. TR is equal to 52. And RS is equal to 20, right? Now it asks us what is the value of tan W. And it says that R corresponds to U, right? So that would be U. V corresponds to S, so that would be V. And T corresponds to W, so this would be W. So it would be exactly the same, these angles. So the proportions would also be the same. So we can imagine this is 20, 48. Sorry about that. 20, 48. And 52 on the side. So now also what is the value of tan W? And remember, tan is just the adjacent side over the hypotenuse. So tan of this angle would be 48 over 52. If we simplify that, that is 12 over 13. So C would be the correct answer, right? So just look at, just draw this new similar triangle for you. First draw the original one. We can use these actual lengths of the sides to determine which letters need to come at which angles because of the hypotenuse, and which one would be the right angle, and so forth. And then we create this new triangle, and tan is just the adjacent over the hypotenuse. The adjacent is 48, the hypotenuse is 52, and then we would get C. Okay, on to the last two answers. Questions, sorry. So it says 1 gallon of paint will cover 220 square feet of a surface. 220 square feet of a surface. A room has a total wall area of W square feet. Which equation represents the total amount of paint in gallons needed to paint the walls of the room twice? Okay, so 1 gallon will cover 220 square feet of a surface. A room has a total wall area of W square feet. Right, so say if it's like 440, then it would be 2 gallons to paint it once, right? So it would be W over 220 to paint the room once, right? Because if it was, say, let's call it, if the total wall area was 220 square feet, then it would take exactly 1 gallon. So 220 over 220 would be just 1. But if we want to paint the walls of the room twice, it would actually have to be, we would have to use twice as much paint, right? Because we're going over the walls twice. So this 2 over 220 would make the denominator 110, right? So we would actually have W over 110, which would give us A. So A would be the answer there. It wouldn't be B or C, because then just wouldn't. Because if it was 1 square feet, say, then we wouldn't use 220 gallons, It would be much less than 1 gallon actually. So just make sure this makes sense for you. Yep. Then for 27, it says the number A is 110% greater than the number B. Okay, so A is equal to what? 110% greater, right? So if it was just 110% of B, we would use 1.1. But because it's 110% greater, because it's 110% greater, and not just 110% of B, we actually use 2.1 B, right? The way we look at this is we always say if something is so many percent greater, it would be 100 plus however much percent it's greater by, times the original value, right? So if it was 50% greater, this would be 1.5. If it was 100% greater, this would be 2 times B, because remember this is all in percent. So in this case we use 2.1 times B. But then it also says the number B is 90% less than 47. So we could get exactly what B is. And if it's 90% less than 47, B is equal to 0.1 times 47, which is, 4.7, right? And then, so we have B is equal to 4.7 and A is equal to 2.1 times 4.7. And that is equal to 2.1 times 4.7. That is equal to 9.87. Okay, so yeah, that is the answer for 27. Okay, so I hope you found this video helpful, and that if you struggle with anything, that it actually solved your problem. If it didn't, you can go down below in the comments and ask about any question. Will be sure to get back to you as soon as possible. And if you liked my style of tutoring and the way I presented it, I also have my own private tutoring kind of company that I run. So if you are interested in private tutoring at all and you want to get the best of your upcoming SAT and try and improve your mark as much as possible, just make sure to press the link down below to book a consultation with me, and we will try and get you sorted out for some SAT tutoring. Okay, so this has been your SAT tutor, John. I hope this was helpful, and I will see you in the next video. Thank you.